Mrs. Tibbets pours hot chocolate into Ben's cup and sits down at the kitchen table across from him. Outside, the rain beats on the windows. Ben shivers again. His jeans are still a little damp, and he feels chilly. He looks around Mrs. Tibbets' kitchen. It's cozy and cluttered. The boxes of pictures and papers are still sitting by the table. Mrs. Tibbets sighs and leans forward, propping her elbows on the table. Well, here's the problem, she says. I only own the house and a little land around it. My sister-in-law owns the rest of the property, and she's going to sell it to a developer who plans to put up a bunch of houses. But I thought it was all yours, Ben says. You live on it. No, my husband inherited the house and the yard, but his sister got everything else. He made her promise not to develop it right away after he died. But it's been over a year now, and she's got an eager buyer. She owns the land. She can do what she wants. But it's not fair, Ben says. This is your home. Well, I could stay here and watch the bulldozers scrape away the trees and the workmen build the fancy houses, but I don't think I'd enjoy that very much. I'd rather go somewhere else. Couldn't you explain to your sister-in-law about the pond and the woods and the... She knows that. She grew up here. But why won't she listen to you? The truth is, we don't get along very well and never have. She's a practical woman who has little patience with what she calls my quirky ways. Thomas drove her crazy too. Together, we just about made her pull her hair out. She's had her mind set on selling this property for years, but my husband kept talking her out of it. Also, I believe she thinks she's helping me. She sees an old woman whose house is a mess and who doesn't have any money, and a woman about to lose her job. Lose your job? What do you mean? Oh, Ben, I was away from teaching for a year after my husband died. When I decided to come back this winter, they had to find a spot for me somewhere. So they gave me a place to teach science for the rest of the year. They didn't even really need a science teacher. Honestly, I don't think there's room for me there anymore, and I'm tired of jumping through their hoops. Ben thinks about Mr. Nickleby and how he didn't seem to like her very much. Can they fire you? Mrs. Tibbets shakes her head. They won't fire me. They'll just make it hard for me to stay. And maybe that's all right. I've taught a long, long time. But you're a great science teacher. They should be glad you came back. Ben's mind is reeling, trying to pull all the pieces of the puzzle together. And you should still live on this land. It just doesn't seem fair. It's worse for the toads than for me, she says. They don't have anywhere else to go. Ben wishes he could think of a way to help her. He remembers books he's read and movies he's seen where the kids band together to help save a plot of land from evil developers. He frowns. Those were just feel-good stories. Nothing but make-believe. This is a lot more complicated. Still, there must be something he can do. Didn't you say that spadefoots are listed as endangered in Massachusetts? He said. Yes, they're threatened, but isn't it illegal to build houses where there are endangered animals? Can't you call someone and tell them about the toads? Someone from the government or something? Mrs. Tibbets sighs, and she suddenly looks very old. To save the toads, you would have to save the habitat it lives in, have it certified as endangered, but it's hard to do. And if I did that, if I called someone, whatever's left of my relationship with Tabitha would fall apart. She'd never speak to me again. She's already found someone to build houses. Stopping it now would be like starting a war. Mrs. Tibbets looks out the window into the dark night. I just don't have the stomach for it. Ben looks at her. Can't they just build houses somewhere else, away from the toads? It's not that easy. The pool is close to the place where they'll need to build the road. They'll dig up the pool or pave over it? But the toads are under there. Where will they go next spring? Mrs. Tibbets shakes her head, but she doesn't say anything. It's not fair, Ben says. It's not fair. Well, you know what they say, Mrs. Tibbets says. Life's not fair. I hate it when people say that. They sit there in silence. Ben wants to say something more, but he's run out of ideas. He had thought his own problems were confusing, but they're nothing compared to the problems in Mrs. Tibbets' life. I think I've said a little too much. Mrs. Tibbets gets up and puts her raincoat back on. I can see I've overwhelmed you, and I didn't mean to do that. It's time to get you home. Your parents will worry that you're getting webbed feet in this weather. Think about that last sentence. Your parents will worry that you're getting webbed feet in this weather. What kind of animals have webbed feet? What do they use their webbed feet for? Why might his parents worry that he's getting webbed feet? The text shares that it's raining. Animals who spend a lot of time in water tend to have webbed feet to help them swim. Ben's parents might worry he's getting webbed feet because he's out in the rain too much. He's not really going to get webbed feet. That's just an expression. When Mrs. Tibbets stops her station wagon in Ben's driveway, he climbs out. "Thanks, Mrs. Tibbets," he says. "Thank you for coming. I was glad to have someone to share this incredible night with." Ben waves and closes the door. Halfway up the driveway, he turns back. Mrs. Tibbets rolls down her window. "Yes," she says. "Still not fair." "Right," says Mrs. Tibbets. "It's not fair. Maybe the overtoad will eat all of them up."